This is Rick Jarrow, and I am here to talk about the 7 great addictions and their resolutions. And I don't think I've ever been more serious in my life. I don't think there's a more necessary and serious subject than this one. Because all the politicians and all the spiritual people out there are talking about man and God and law. And still, the big issues remain. Food, sex, money, and power. That's where everybody keeps tripping up no matter what they say. And people keep looking at the sky and having big ideas and not dealing with the fact that we live in an addictive culture. Mainstream society promotes, fosters, and capitalizes on addiction. It's just that some addictions are socially sanctioned and some aren't. But if you think that you're not addicted, then you're really in trouble. Because the only people who are not addicts are either liberated souls, Jivan Muktas they're called, and there are very few of those, or else people who have become completely colonized by society, robots, automatons, get up, go to work, come home and die. So the issue is not how terrible addiction is, but to really understand the dynamic of what's going on here and how we can work with it. Because the premise of this methodology and what is so beautiful about it is the understanding that you cannot fight an addiction. You cannot conquer an addiction. You will lose. Because the energy to try to repress, control, deny, or mask addiction is itself so crippling, so debilitating, that it contributes to the dehumanizing of a whole planet. And we are living in the midst of a soul-killing mainstream civilization, and the job here is not to say, just say no, or just do it. That's just immature crap. The job here is to really get down to the bottom of it and see how we can salvage our own humanity and redeem what is whole and expressive and expansive and true about the human condition. So what I've done for simplicity's sake only is to connect the 7 great addictions to the 7 chakras, to the chakra system, just as a way of getting into it. But the intellectual or spiritual understanding will not help you at all. Nothing's going to help. That's where AA's got it right. That we are helpless against, you can call it alcohol, but thousands of other addictions. So now what do? Well, how about this? What if addiction is not some bad person or bad energy that is controlling our life? But what if addiction is a survival strategy that we adopt unconsciously for one reason? To avoid the pain of our life. They don't want to tell you this when you grow up in school, but life can be incredibly painful. Not just birth, death, disease, old age, not just not getting what you want. Getting what you want can be the most painful thing. Every day, every second, you step on billions of beings and kill them. We're in the middle of a minefield. There is beauty, there is loveliness, there is agony, and they're going on simultaneously. So the understanding here is that addiction is not the enemy. But addiction is nature's way, is the universe's way of giving us keys to get into or go through our wholeness, to really understand what is being asked of us by life. So let's start with the first chakra, the food addiction. The food addiction is ubiquitous. Just go on TV and see the advertisement for the burgers and the shakes and drizzling heart attack cheese like falling all over you. And people keep eating, and you know, I hate to say this, but if you ever go to an international airport, you can pick out the Americans like that because they're all overweight. How is it that with all the intelligence, I mean, people know that sugar is bad for you. They've known that for 35 years. They know trans fats are no good for you. Why are people getting sicker and sicker? Why do people think their food comes from plastic bags? So what if at the bottom of the food addiction is the issue of nourishment, nurturing? Could it be that we keep eating more and more, tasting less and less, being nourished less and less, because we're starving? We don't take the time or have the presence to fully nourish ourselves. I once saw a woman in a Native American ceremony pray over a bucket of water for an hour and a half. I can never drink water in the same way again. We don't appreciate the water. We don't appreciate the smell of the earth. We don't feel the flame of the fire because we're too fast. The Bengali poet Tagore once said that beauty makes no demands upon you. You're free to ignore it. So when we're literally trampling on the mother every day, not just the asphalt, not just the tires, not just excavating the minerals from the earth, but the arrogance of taking without giving back, then we're going to feel undernourished. It's very simple. Notice if you were fortunate enough to ever grow your own food or to be part of a community-supported agriculture like the one I'm part of, and you participate in the process of sowing and reaping and sharing and giving and taking, that food is so different. It's sacred. And this issue, people get into can't eat this, can't eat that, vegetarian, vegan. This is all your mind. It's all in your mind. If you're eating your thoughts, are you going to be nourished? Even if those thoughts are, quote, good thoughts. Most of us don't eat food, we eat our thoughts. Think about it. So the message of the food addiction is to pay attention to the earth, to pay attention to the abundance, to accept the gift of the water. Not to say, oh, I can't eat that, but to see it as what it actually is, which is the glorious gift of inconceivable bounty. If you eat that way and you make the contact, it's so sacred. It's so powerful. And all of a sudden, the stuff with the icing and the cellophane, and it just becomes, it's so gross. Why would you want to do that to yourself? The food addiction is resolved through regrounding in the earth, through getting back to the rhythms of the seasons, through honoring not only what we put in our bodies, but the way we shop, the way we plant, the way we circulate energy, because it's a question of honoring the giving and receiving and not this mindless taking. This is really powerful stuff. The Finhorn people, Eileen Caddy, they grew gigantic cauliflowers on a garbage dump. No fertilizer, no chemicals, on a garbage dump, just by singing to the plants. Have you been singing to the plants? A student who, when he graduated my college, he went for a year to work on a reservation with the Navajo. He was a shepherd. He was herding sheep, and he said, all the stuff, the worst stuff for you with the most chemicals and the most carcinogen-filled garbage, where do you find it? On the margins of society, on the reservations. Food addiction. The resolution is to allow life to nurture you, to slow down enough to smell the flowers, to breathe the air. It might sound a little romantic, but it's really gut-level stuff. let's go to the sex addiction. I heard a story. Wife went away for a weekend, and when she came back, the credit card bill came a few days later. Her husband had racked up an $80,000 pornography bill on a weekend. I don't know how you do that, but that typifies what has happened in the second chakra, which is the sex addiction. If you try to stop it, remember in Catholic school, don't go to that movie, if you try to stop it, you create the devil. The late, great James Hillman once referred to pornography as the revenge of Aphrodite. Revenge of what? The sexual addiction, you see, all these addictions are inversely and exactly proportional to the way we have or have not been paying attention to our life. If you are sensually deprived, if you never have the pleasure of living in a body, if you don't touch anybody, if you don't feel part of a community, if you don't see the orange of the orange and the green of the trees, if you don't see the beauty of people, then what's left? All these images that the media is implanting into your mind in order to get you hooked to buy products. All right? The sex addiction is the collapsing of the entire sensual apparatus into the genitals. Like, that's all there is. Life is a sneeze between the loins. Like, that's what it's come down to for most people. And it's so funny to me because the Republicans and the Democrats, all of them, they castigate Hollywood and they castigate this one and that one, and yet, how do they sell their products? Okay. The sex addiction is the seed of the second chakra. It is where human energy can flower, where Kundalini, the coiled serpent energy of creation, can flower into bliss. It's where the levels of exchange with other people can just open and open. And people dismiss sexuality as like, quote, the animal thing, it's a human need. It's so much more than that. If you think about the nexus of human evolution, if the first chakra is survival, people just, killing and eating to survive, instead of understanding there's a sacrificial process of exchange. Well, what's happening, even as great a philosopher as Jean-Paul Sartre could not see sexuality as anything more than one person imposing their will on another. And just think about this, because as a culture, the second and third chakras have gotten so enmeshed that the war between men and women, which is endemic in our society, it's this twisted, bent out of shape, I will either have power or I will give up power, but I cannot share power. So sexuality is the fulcrum where if there's enough honesty, enough openness, enough love, enough humility, that two people can really be open and work with each other, then that energy can begin to move into heights instead of just roll over and do it again. Or you didn't give me this, or you didn't give me that, or how many orgasms did I have, or didn't I have? I was just reading the cover of Time magazine. I don't read Time magazine, but I saw the cover. It said menopause. Men are working so hard, working so much, and they're, I'm losing my mojo, as the movie says. Well, that's because we're still thinking of it as my mojo and not as a kind of shared essence of flowering energy. Which leads us to the third addiction, because they're all connected. The third addiction is power. Power is the symptom. The symptom of power is you're worried about rank. You always worried, like, where do I fit in? And one of the funniest things, what's sad actually, not that funny, but when I used to go tramping around India, which has this brutal, rigid, caste hierarchical system as a kind of cultural inheritance, when you go hang out on the streets with the lowest of the low, the outcasts, they have their own ranks, they have their own power dynamics, and everyone is pigeonholing everybody else. One of the greatest examples of the powerful, of the aligned use of power in recent history was the King of Denmark during World War II. When Hitler demanded that all the Jews in Denmark wear a yellow star, and the king put a yellow star on himself, and everyone else in Denmark put on that yellow star. That's the warrior, that's courage. That's putting it on the line, not worrying about who's making more than you. So the power addiction gets you obsessed with ratings. It makes you live for something outside of yourself because it exacerbates the fact that you feel inadequate, inferior, and worthless. If you learn to breathe in and breathe out and feel the ground beneath your feet and feel the world of the senses and feel the power of the universe coursing through you, you will experience power right here, right now. And then the role that you play in the world, that is what it's meant to be. It's your duty. It's not something that you oink after, okay? The power addiction, as we know, has been so destructive. Parents, sometimes my heart just goes to pieces. I'm in the mall shopping, and I see a mother or father like slapping their little child. And it's like their lack of power causing them to abuse the child. It's like inheritance. When is it going to stop? When are the big countries going to stop throwing their weight around and being controlled by power? When we get to the fourth chakra. So the next place in this topography is the fourth chakra, which is often said to be the place of love, the place where power can morph into respect and caring and sharing and actually respecting the other. So what is the addiction of the fourth chakra? This is very interesting. The fourth chakra is the love addiction. Right? I just love that car. I just love that ice cream. Oh, I'm so in love with you until you get too close. It's very funny. The love addiction is the addiction to the projection of what can be and the absolute inability to love what is. The love addiction says, I'm leaving because there's not enough love. As opposed to working at, I'm going to open to more love and then see where that takes me. So in our culture, the love addiction expresses itself as shopping. When America was falling apart, when the Twin Towers fell, what did the great mayor tell the people of America? Go shopping, save the world, keep the country moving. That's what we really need. These are American values. Are you kidding me? Allen Ginsberg, 30 years earlier, said, America, are you going to allow your emotional life to be run by Time magazine? Right? There's nothing wrong with buying things. The issue is when we project our love energy onto something, instead of having a legitimate exchange, then we need more and more and more of it. The car is not enough. The house is not enough. It's never enough. And the pain of that is our refusal to entertain the possibility that perhaps the very ground of existence itself is love. I remember when Hilda Charlton, my wonderful teacher, told us how the day she realized, oh, it's like that I am love. It's not just that I love you, but I am love. That I am love. It's not, oh, I'm Joe Smith, I'm cool, I'm love. No. I am love. It is all love. And then you smile and your heart is open during the day, and people are attracted to you and you're attracted to people, and you don't need to power trip them. Right? And you buy things that you appreciate, but you keep them for years because they're real. It's real value. It's not trying to fill up something empty. I don't know what to do. Let's go shopping. So this moves us to the fifth chakra. It's hard to verbalize, give a label to what the addiction of the fifth chakra is. I like to think of, sometimes I say fantasy or illusion or delusion, but it's more like that old Bob Dylan song, Stuck Inside of Mobile with the Memphis Blues again. The fifth chakra is the spinning of endless fantasy because you don't want to deal with the pain of being here. So for example, people who trip out on their conspiracy theories. Nothing wrong with conspiracy theories. I have my own conspiracy theories. But if you spend your life worrying about the reptiles or worrying about the Illuminati, or there's something really misaligned about this. Or watching 5-6 hours of television a day is not socially unacceptable addiction. And drinking with that's fine. The fifth chakra addiction is, again, you want to be someplace else. You watch the commercial, buy the car and you're in Tahiti. Create all kinds of scenarios and drama. Who's going to win the election? Who's going to win the NFL this year? Who's going to win the Academy Awards? You have thousands of these things every day just to keep people satiated and to stop them from looking at the actual pain of being in the present. The fundamental dynamic of addiction, it's a strategy to avoid coming to terms with your pain. And this leads us to what may be the greatest addiction of all. The sixth chakra, I call it the God addiction. No offense, but if I was a clergyman, I don't care, Jewish, Christian, Protestant, Muslim, Hindu, if I was a clergyman, I would put on sackcloth and ashes and get up in front of my house of worship and fall on my knees and ask for repentance for all the damage that the religions have done to human beings in the name of God, for the torture, for the maiming, for the abuse of little kids, for the crusades, for the denial. I'm not dissing religion. What I'm dissing is the God addiction that says, I know the truth and you don't. I have superior knowledge and you don't. God spoke to my guru and not to yours. We are chosen and you are not. We are clean and you are not. This is the oldest trick in the book. Read the anthropologist Mary Douglas, Purity and Danger. Every culture from the beginning of recorded history figures out a way to create people who are in and people who are out. The God addiction is so pernicious because it masks itself in piety and holiness, where what it's actually doing is refusing relationship. When you say, I have the truth and you don't, I know that what's right and you don't, my rules are right and yours aren't, that is the end of having any open relationship with you. That is the end of the field. I've closed the book on my life. Why do people do this? Why do people say Jesus is the only way, Krishna is the only way, whatever they think? Because they're scared shitless. And this is the God addiction is coming from the greatest fear, which is that we don't know who we are or why we're here. And rather than face that, the culture tries to keep you distracted. Have another cappuccino. See who wins the World Cup. And when you actually come face to face with that, someone takes a drug, it blows their mind, or they have an accident and suddenly they stare death in the face. Yeah. This is an existential moment. And what a lot of people do, unfortunately, is grab for the nearest straw. Now look, I respect, whatever anyone else's belief system is. You're free to have it. But if you are holding on to God as a concept, if you are clinging to that, you are robbing yourself of any relationship with life. You're living under a bubble of self-created ideology. And this includes communists and anyone who knows the truth. Nietzsche, when he was speaking about the scientists, he really got this. In the Genealogy of Morals, he said, they are not free spirits because they still believe in the truth. Can you dare, do we dare, finally, after thousands of years, take off these masks of false knowing and actually become humble and unknowing in our spirituality? Now, the final addiction, which I connect with the seventh chakra, I call it the nihilistic addiction. A tale told by an idiot, filled with sound and fury, signifying nothing, says Macbeth. But what's the addiction part? Think about this, because we all do it. Oh, we say, I'm not a nihilist, I believe. Whenever you go to the pizza shop, whenever you go to the local convenience store and get your coffee and your whatever, and then you throw the thing away, you throw the plastic cup away, you're being a nihilist. Because you're saying it doesn't matter. Who cares where it goes? There are 108 completely full landfills in the Hudson Valley where I live. And I was in one ice cream store the other day, and they're talking about, yes, we're healthy and we're ecological. And they have a big thing of plastic spoons. And I said, what happens to these spoons after people use them? I said, well, they get recycled. I said, well, but do you do that? We don't do that. It's not the ecology police here. That's not the issue. The issue is when you are fundamentally depressed, you just don't give a shit anymore. And that's what heroin is. I know this addiction. The opiate addiction, which is spreading like wildfire, not through the backstreet illegal channels, but through the medical profession. It puts you in a state where you're free from pain, where it doesn't matter anymore. And it's a pseudo-freedom. This was the mistake that was made in the Middle Ages, when they said God is up there and the world is down here, which gives us permission to lay waste to the world. See? Anne Dillard, in a beautiful book, For the Time Being, asks this question. She says a tsunami came and killed 108,000 people in 2 minutes. Does the life of an individual really matter? And she talks about a Hasidic community in Connecticut. They went out for a picnic, and they came back, and they found there was one girl missing, 12-year-old girl. And not only did they go out looking for her, they contacted everybody. Thousands of people came and went looking for this one girl. And they did find her. But that's not the issue. The issue is that it matters. This is an old argument back in the 12th century, the Manichaeans versus the church. And the Manichaeans said the world is illusion, it doesn't matter. And the church said that would be true if it weren't for the incarnation of Christ, which makes the world viable. Well, what the hell does that mean? No pun intended. Right? It means that if Jesus washed the feet of his disciples, if Jesus did not refuse the tax collectors, if Jesus hung out with the Mary Magdalenes, if Jesus healed on the Sabbath, it showed a way of opening to the healing of these addictions, which is to let them speak to us, show us where we are starving. The food addiction, you're starved for nourishment. The sex addiction, you're starved for sensuality. The power addiction, you're starved for actually feeling the power in your body. The love addiction, you're still believing it's out there. The fantasy addiction, you're thinking one day my ship will come in. The God addiction, I don't know what you're thinking you're going to go up in some spaceship and that's going to make it all right. What about everybody else before you? And a nihilist addiction, you just don't give a shit. Somebody asked me the other day, I don't know how we got on this discussion, but we were discussing, like, what is your definition of an asshole? And I said, an asshole is somebody who doesn't give a shit. And like, we all fit, that's a nihilistic addiction. You know, it just, it's not that important. Oh, collateral damage. When you move into opening instead of closing, you realize that everything is important. There's nothing that's not important. And when you open to the littlest thing in your life, how you treat the waitress, how you connect with the person on the bus, how you put your hat on the hat rack, this is when you start getting the feedback of where to receive more nourishment. The more nourishment you receive, the less you cling to, the more you give. And what is the healed vision? You see, what is a healed vision? It's easy to say what's wrong. I know we live in an addicted culture. I know, everybody knows that the economy is fostering addiction and neurosis and violence. But what does the healed vision look like? And I like to end this just by not telling you, because what the hell do I know? But by asking you to, just for 1 second, bring your energy into your heart. Breathe in, breathe out. And just allow yourself to dare imagine the world that you have always dreamed of. The world as it should be. Not your mind. Don't tell me truth, justice, and the American way. See it, feel it. Children playing, people singing on the steps, sharing food, dancing in circles, honoring the sun and the moon, however you see it. Because if you can see it, there's a place for you in it.